Hey guys, Wolvie here and welcome back to the channel. As always, the usual disclaimer, any opinion here is mine and mine alone. Now this is part 1 of 2, and by that this is the Hunger Games review, more specifically the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Now part 1 here is a non-spoiler review, and by non-spoiler is that I will not be spoiling what happens to who. I will be revealing certain aspects of the movie without giving away what happens to who. Now, part 2 will have spoilers, and I will also be referring to the book to, have a bit of a comparison reference. It's like from the book to the movie, and vice versa. So that's not on that. I saw this movie twice, and I want to make sure I do my tradition when it comes to Hunger Games films to see the movie twice in the cinema before I can do any format of a review. Because when it comes to the Hunger Games franchise, it's like, I don't know how I really fell in love with it, but Suzanne Collins gets a lot of credit for creating a plot that resonates with stuff that's going on today. You don't get that often, now do you? Anywho, I will be revealing certain aspects of the movie, length of time, general storyline, a couple of cast members here and there, so on and so forth. Along with, me giving out what I liked, what I didn't like, certain things that could go either way. Towards the end will be, the scores, my personal score and the intended audience score, so that way people can understand where I come from as solid as possible, if that makes any sense. So anyway, regarding the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, this takes place 64 years before the events of the original trilogy. So we are dealing with a young Corio Snow, and I have a hard time pronouncing his first name correctly, so bear with me. And like I said, it's young Corio Snow, and then there's a female character. For those of you who read the book, that's Lucy Gray. So it's pretty much, the whole, the movie takes place 64 years before the events of the first Hunger Games book. And for those of you who have read both the prequel and the original trilogy. Now, one of the things I really, really enjoyed here, and is the casting, because it's like you're talking about an all-new cast. And the reason why I love the all-new cast, because it's like, when it comes to prequels, it would make zero sense if you kept some of the people from the original trilogy here. And the fact that Viola Davis is in this movie, it's just I was really glad I saw it twice, because when it comes to characters like Dr. Gall, Viola Davis portraying that character is a stroke of frickin' genius. You don't get much better than that. It's just like Dr. Gall was beyond believable here. And then the casting for young Corio and Lucy Gray, it just felt so real. It's just you really want to root for them, but it's you really but if you read the book, you kind of know yeah. That won't really work out that way, but A for effort. So the casting overall, just really good. Viola Davis, perhaps the most genius casting of all. And then the casting for young Corio and Lucy Gray, that's just really, it just felt real, really genuine. Now, the length of the movie is said to be 2 hours and 37 minutes. So it's the fact it's that long, and it pretty much goes in tune with the book. It's just the fact that it's pretty much the movie is the book verbatim. I mean, that's really good, because it's you don't want to rush things so much. But with that being said, is that I felt that there are certain things in the movie that felt slightly rushed. Now, I won't go into what here in part 1. I will probably get into that a little bit in part 2, when I go into the spoiler side of the review. Now, regarding certain aspects of the movie, is that, and this is a first in any of the Hunger Games movies that I can recall, is that the sections that people have known in the book are actually present in this particular movie. And that's a first, and it's something I don't like, because I have a bizarre feeling that putting the titles of the sections that are in the book in the movie, it's probably got some people feeling it's catering to a certain audience. And it's the audience that refuses to read the books. And it's something I don't really like, because it's like, when it comes to like putting something from a book into movie form, you know you're going to get some stuff off. But it doesn't feel right to put the sections of the book in the movie, because it's like catering to a certain thing. It's just like it doesn't seem fair. Now, another thing where it's just like certain aspects of the movie is like, when it comes to the title card, when it comes to like movies, it's like at a pretty specific point in the movie. It's not at a specific point here. And it's just like, I'm a little torn on that. But it's like, yeah. Now, another thing here is just like, that's a bit of a dislike, but it's a much more understandable, but it's something I don't like either way, is that the timing of this movie's release. Now, the reason why I'm not fond of it, although I can understand it, is because you're talking about movies that are really hyped up being released so close together. And the reason why I'm not fond of it is because it's like, it's just, there's too much competition. It's like people may not get sequels because it's like they're not making their money back. I mean, we see movies where it's like it flopped spectacularly. And one of those movies I actually wound up seeing recently, which I enjoyed, but flopped like you wouldn't believe. And that's the fourth Expendables movie. So on that, regarding that sort of thing, it's just like the timing, and it could have been more mindful for the people behind this particular movie. Anything else that I'm liking here? So it's like, when it comes down to this movie as a whole, and I'm probably going to reiterate this in part 2 with the book, this does leave the door wide open for a couple of more prequels, and by that, it kind of continues on with the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but it's going to be additional events that leads into what happened in the original trilogy. Meaning that, for those of you who remember Star Wars, it's like, back in the 70s and late 70s, early 80s, it's like you had those first 3, the original trilogy, which turned out to be episodes 4, 5, and 6. And then, later on would be, then you have that prequel trilogy, meaning episodes 1, 2, and 3. Then later on, in more recent years, you have episodes 7, 8, 9. So it's probably going to be something like that. However, with the Hunger Games, it's probably going to be like, you have your prequel trilogy number 1, which leads up to the original trilogy. Then probably a second set of prequels, which led into the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Meaning that you're talking about the war, all that stuff. So I do feel this opens the door wide open for not 1 but 2 sets of trilogies. Meaning that this particular trilogy will probably follow young Corio into him becoming president of Panem, all that stuff, and then Tigris with her transformation that we see in Mockingjay. And then the prequel, before this, would be the war, what happened in the Dark Days, and that led into the very first Hunger Games. So it does leave the door open, and it's because of this does leave, a future for the franchise where it's anything can happen. Meaning that this could be the one-off, prequel for everything. It could lead into that trilogy that I mentioned, where it's you see Corio rising into power, eventually becoming president of Panem, and then you see Tigris having that transformation that we see in Mockingjay. So we have that, and it could be that and just that, or we have that, and then sometime later we have the Great War, the Dark Days that leads into the first Hunger Games. Because there are other channels that have mentioned things with the Hunger Games where it's like there are varying victors here and there. And it's just like, it does leave like a good amount like opportunities open. But it comes down to, you know, what type of opportunities will come if it gets to that, and then who will be involved. But I think it may come down to, in the end, Suzanne Collins herself, you know, either confirming things, like debunking things, or whatever have you. So, outside of all of that, like I said, I'm going to be revealing a little bit more in parts 2, because again, you have to remember, part 2 is going to be Spoiler City, where I reveal certain things in the book, in the movie, and doing comparison and contrast on that. So I'm going to go into the scores I have for this particular movie. Now, for those of you who know I do reviews, is that I give out 2 scores. The first score is the intended audience score, meaning that people who like really are like people are seeking, you know, to watch it. And then the second score of the 2 is my personal score, how I feel about, like, you know, about it personally. Now, the intended audience score is actually a 10 out of 10 because it's like, you're talking about a movie that doesn't have many flaws, in my opinion. I mean, there's certain things that are there, but it's just like, for some people, you can easily overlook it if you want to. Now, with my personal score, let me see if I can get this. There we go. There's my fur nephew right there, Sandy.the.tabby. So now with my personal score, it's going to be a 9 out of 10. It's like, the reason why I don't give varying things a perfect score is because it's like, oh my gosh. It's mainly because it's like when it comes to like most like stuff, like when it comes to like film or whatever, it's like almost nothing, you know, really warrants a perfect score unless it like really exceeds the expectations, if that makes any sense. So, to reiterate the whole thing, the non-spoiler version of this review is like, Viola Davis is in this movie. She is perhaps the best casting for this as Dr. Gall. And then you have you 2 here with the young Corio and Lucy Gray. They just made like their whole like interaction with each other really genuine, really real. The all new casting, that's the best thing this film did, because you want to give it a breath of fresh air. The length of the movie is pretty much like kind of like on par with how long the book is. But you do have to be aware of the aspects of the movie where it's like, it's the title of the section of the book in the movie. And you also have things like the timing that this film got released into the cinema, along with the timing of the title card not being at the usual spot. So it's like you can overlook it, you may not, who really knows. But that's just me and my opinion, so I'm done with this video. With Wolvie here signing off, I will catch you all on the flip side.